Hi, and welcome to Concussion Talk Podcast. I'm Nick Mercer. Please visit my website at www.concussiontalk.com and consider supporting Concussion Talk on Patreon at www.patreon.com/concussion talk. This will likely be my final episode of Concussion Talk Podcast in June, so I want to thank Premier Athletic Therapy and Sports Medicine Clinic. You can visit them online at www.premierathletictherapy.com, and if you're in the St. John's area, you can call or book an appointment for athletic therapy, kinesiology, or massage online. And now on with episode 44 of Concussion Talk Podcast. I'm talking to Shannon Busta, who is a digital journalist. And Shannon, can you tell us what you were about your concussion? Like, how did it happen? Where was it? Just the general fact of where it was and what happened and when. So
yeah, absolutely. I was at our curling rink in the fall of 2017, and every time I say that my concussion happened at a curling rink, my friends assume that the accident happened on the ice, but it was far more simple than that. I just sat in a chair to lace up my curling shoes, and when I leaned back in the chair, a table had been pushed over the top of the backrest, and so I just kind of clocked the back of my head. But it wasn't anything extraordinary, you know. It wasn't a crazy impact. I said that was embarrassing and tied up my shoes and went out and played 5 ends of curling. I had never had a concussion before, so it actually had never even occurred to me that I may have contracted a concussion in that moment. But for 3 days, I went to work, I went to the gym, I rode my bike, and I started feeling progressively worse, symptoms I was not used to, confusion, headache. And then I went to my doctor's 3 days later, and he told me that I was concussed and I needed to take a week off work and do nothing. And that was the beginning of an 18-month journey.
yeah, I was going to ask you actually when you decided that you needed to go to see a doctor, but you said just after the 3 days. Oh, and I should note first of all, you are did I say that, a digital journalist?
Yep. Yeah,
And you wrote the article for this article is called what's it called again? How my concussion
changed my relationship with
with
success.
success. Yes. How I got it right here actually. Jeez, indeed. Okay, how my concussion changed my relationship with success. Anyway, yeah. So you were saying that you went to the doctor after 3 days. Is there one thing that really said? Oh, you said yourself one symptom that you thought I should see a doctor, or was it just that they were still there and you're still not feeling right, as they say?
There were a few things. I was having trouble remembering a few of my colleagues' names. Like people that I have worked with for 8 years, I was struggling to recall their name. Like it was on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't figure it out. And then I was also having a really hard time with the lights at the office.
Oh.
I've never had sensitivity to light in my life before. But at the time I was working at the Globe and Mail, and beautiful, brand new, modern office, and just as bright as you could get it, you know. And I was having a really hard time being in that space. And actually then one of my colleagues who's been, you know, playing on team sports since she was a kid and has had a few concussions, she kind of became aware of how I was feeling, and it was actually on her recommendation that I went to the doctor.
Yeah. It's a good thing is she was there.
Seriously.
So what symptoms did you find lasted a long time that were beyond? But I mean, you originally said that light sensitivity, but you mentioned earlier that smell and sound.
Yeah,
I
find
sound myself actually.
Oh yeah, just like awful. I feel like my concussion, and probably most people's concussions, my symptoms exist on this spectrum from like good or like just aware of them to very bad. And when I start pushing myself too hard and my symptoms start moving into the like more dangerous zone of just being completely incapacitated, that's when I start getting sensitivity to sound and sensitivity to smell. And it's so powerful. Like, there's nothing worse than the smell of a cigarette to me
See,
if
I don't have
I'm having a
sensitive
bad day.
I don't have sensitive smell. Well, actually, I do now, I guess. Chemo treatment, that's different. But chemo, but that's different than concussion stuff. But yeah, but so that's just cigarette smoke is one that really gets you?
Secondhand smoke, or like if my partner, if he's cooking in the kitchen and I'm having a really bad day, it can be very challenging for me. And these things often lead to feelings of like aggravation or irritation, which, you know, you need to be aware of so that it doesn't come out on the people that you love, right?
Yeah, yeah. So luckily for you now, it's not your bread does not trigger that, does it?
Yeah, actually.
Or certain types of bread do?
No, bread is amazing. Bread has just been like this. It's always been an incredible part of my life. Like, my dad spent a good chunk of his young adult years living in France. So as a result, we've always had baguettes in my house. Yeah. And I've always cooked, but I never cooked bread. And then when I hit my head and I really felt like I wasn't being productive at all, because I was, I ended up being completely off work for over 6 months. And during that time, I felt like I really needed to accomplish something every day just for my mental health.
Yeah.
And I lead a pretty busy life. And so having to really hit the brakes was very emotionally hard for me. And so baking bread became one of the ways that I made myself feel better. And it luckily the smell did not bother me. And I think my partner and I and my family all collectively gained some weight during that time because I was making a lot of bread. And there's nothing quite like fresh bread out of the oven, just like with butter all over it or olive oil.
Yeah.
I could eat it for days.
Yeah, of course, me too. Yeah. So you mentioned you're off work for 6 months, and when did you start going back full time?
I did a graduated return to work. So it would have been about a year ago. A year ago, I started going back first 1 day a week, and then 2 days a week, and then 3 days a week, up until 5 days a week. I think it took 2 months to get me back to 5 days a week.
Okay.
And I worked from home a couple of days a week as
well as like, so 3 days a week in the office and 2 days at home?
Yeah.
And you have been working 5 days a week fully in the office when you went back?
I have been like in the last half year or so. Often I'll be in the office 5 days a week, but it's always just nice to have 1 day a week from home. Not to have to go down into downtown Toronto. I don't mind that.
Yeah.
But I found when I did return to work, one of the symptoms that I battled a bit was I used to get quite motion sick on the streetcar going into the office. And
what about the subway or the car, or just regular car?
I find the subway's fine, but it's the streetcar and the buses, they kill me. And so, and I was a bit too nervous to get back on my bike right away. I usually ride to work, but I don't know, a concussion makes you, I think, a bit more risk averse, right?
And your balance wasn't all that great either.
Yeah, so that first summer was really hard going into the office via public transportation. And that's one of the main reasons that I tried to work from home a couple days a week, just to avoid that beginning and ending my day feeling like crap.
Right. So when did you realize that your concussion symptoms were a little bit more longer term issue than more just this, maybe I'll be off for a week or I'll be off for 2 weeks, or when do you realize that a few months, maybe a few more months?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Was there a trigger? Was my other part of that.
I don't know. I mean, there must have been moments because so I hit my head, I believe it was on November 3rd of 2017.
Yeah. Okay.
And January 14th, I was supposed to begin my MBA. And so it actually hadn't even occurred to me that it was going to be more than a week off. When I first went in and told my doctor, and he said, "Oh, you have to stay home," I was like a little bit stressed because I had some really big projects going at work. But I was
Right.
like, you know what? A week off doing nothing, it will
Yeah.
probably be good for me.
Yeah.
But then 1 week became 3 weeks. And then I went back to the office after 3 weeks and worked for 2 weeks. And I thought I was okay. And I was kind of trying to ignore some symptoms. But after those 2 weeks, I relapsed so badly
Oh, yeah.
that I had to take a cab home. And I didn't really get out of bed for a few days after that. And that's when my doctors had a really tough conversation with me. So this would have been now like early December. You know, that's when they had the tough conversation with me about, we're going to have to put you on a long-term plan. Like, I think you should take at least 2 months off work. You need to postpone your MBA. That was the hardest thing emotionally, because the MBA just represented such an exciting time for me.
Yeah.
And I just really wanted to get it started so that I could finish sooner as well, right?
Yeah.
And start reaping the benefits. So it was very hard to put that on hold, but I obviously did, and
Yeah.
my long-term care just kept extending. I had a conversation with my doctors and my insurance team and my office every 2 weeks, and we'd all check in and reassess. And my start date kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and before I knew it, it had been 6 months and before I was walking back into my office.
Right. That's why I want to talk to you about your perception of success and accomplishment, and what this mandatory pause and imposed pause or slowing down. I know for me, I've always been pretty laid back, so slowing down is not really I was doing a lot of stuff, a lot of activities before my brain injury. But yeah, I noticed that it's not necessarily. Do you find that now that you have less, not importance as maybe sort of values, maybe strong words, but the best words I have for how you place importance or value on accomplishment or success more than just enjoying your bread and your
enjoying the bread that I
smelling the loaf. Yeah.
I think that I certainly have. Like, my perspective has certainly shifted. The experience of being home for 6 months and becoming weirdly obsessed with getting better at baking bread, and many other things. Like, our house was unbelievably spotless just because I needed to do something every day.
You mentioned Marie Kondo your condo or your house, but I don't even know what I know what that's in that sensation. I don't even know what that is. Marie Kondo.
So
what does that mean?
Marie Kondo is basically this incredible woman who goes into people's homes and helps them organize their house. But it's like absurdly organized. It's almost beyond reason. And so
it's on Netflix?
So I did that. Yeah, it's on Netflix.
I guess I know about this one.
Yeah, I would recommend it. Anyway, at some point I realized, like, why am I not okay with just being, like, why can't I just be patient with this process? Why do I have to always throw my energies into producing something or improving something? And, I think that's one of my best traits for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying I want it to go away, but the experience made me more aware of it, and helped me slow down, helped me appreciate the value of the now and of living in the moment and of enjoying, instead of thinking how this bread could be better, enjoying it and appreciating that I didn't know how to make bread 2 months ago, and now I make incredible bread. I really wasn't very good at that, at reflecting on the accomplishments that had already been made. And I'm still struggling with it. I'm always looking. I'm starting a new job next week, and instead of really enjoying the fact that I am going to work at an incredible, or that even just like that I successfully interviewed over the course of 2 months for a job that is my dream job.
Yeah.
I'm not even really living in that joy anymore. I'm already projecting out to the future to be like, okay, what's my first 90 days going to look
Yeah.
like, So it's always a work in progress, but the experience, in short, just made me aware of this side of me. And so now that's a project that I'm constantly working on just living in the now and enjoying the benefits of hard work done rather than always looking forward.
Yeah, no, I think that's important to know. Like I was thinking, speed is never. I mean, first thing I always wanted to challenge myself, and my brain just definitely put a pause on that or a different. I had to take a different perspective. That's one of the things they can have you kind of forced to have this new perspective. It's not like this because if you don't have a new perspective, it's a new life for you to not be able to do everything as quickly or as coordinated as you'd like, and not doing it with such speed and such. I don't know, not me in an organization because that helps me a lot. Actually, being organized helps me a lot. But yeah, the speed and you don't have the same perspective as you used to, and everything has slowed down by even if maybe it is by force, but it's slowed down anyway. So that's
Yeah. I definitely appreciate the value of taking breaks now as
yeah,
well. I had never been the kind of person in the past who would take a break. I didn't see how it would benefit me. To be perfectly honest, it was more I saw breaks more as why would I intentionally choose to pause my momentum?
yeah,
You
yeah,
know. But now, absolutely, if I don't get up from my desk and go for a walk every couple of hours, I
yeah.
can easily find myself feeling symptomatic.
Yeah, like, whether it's society or even you, I used to push like I always had to push myself, or I always have to challenge myself, and that doesn't mean you can't take a break. You need breaks. I mean, that's just so you're
Absolutely.
telling yourself or pushing yourself doesn't mean you're not resting and taking care of your body, and that's one thing, or taking care of your mind too, as well. And that's one thing I think that's often overlooked. Like you said, you mentioned in your article even about this the whole idea of this always having the momentum and what's the other one?
Accomplishment.
Accomplishment, yes, exactly, in
Yeah.
society. But it's not obviously something we're going to tackle. It's just as you said, not something we're going to tackle in the article, not something we want to tackle here either. But yeah, I think just the idea of just appreciating, not even appreciating. That's right, two-letter word. Enjoying where you are, and enjoying
Yeah.
because appreciating is just recognizing it and just moving on. But I think enjoying takes more time, more concentration, to or focus to just really realize that where you are is a good place, and just because you're not where you thought you'd be, where you originally wanted to be is not really not even like a doesn't matter, doesn't have an effect on your life now.
Absolutely.
So cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's great. Well, so anything else you'd like to mention about your
Um, about
concussion?
my
Your
experience, I
experience,
think
yeah.
my number one lesson from my concussion really was just how important good medical help is when it comes to any kind of brain trauma.
Yeah.
So when I first went to check in with my doctor after those first 3 days after I hit my head, um, he told me I should go home and lie in a dark room and do nothing until the headache goes away. And he's an incredible man, an incredible doctor, but he also delivered me, and so he is about to retire. So
Oh,
his understanding of effective concussion treatment, to be perfectly frank, isn't in keeping with modern understandings of concussion best practices. And
yeah.
so they got me into the Neurology Center of Toronto, I believe it's called, where Dr. Evan Lewis, he's a neurologist there who specializes in concussion recovery for athletes.
Oh,
And, fitness and running has been a huge part of my life for a decade now.
yeah.
And they really helped. They customized a treatment for my recovery, a treatment plan for my recovery that completely changed my the speed at which I recovered. To be perfectly frank, because
Good.
they gave me completely different guidelines than what my family physician had given me,
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking my family physician. It's really just, you need to go somewhere where people have the most up-to-date information and can focus on your specific situation. And so that would be my number one recommendation for anybody finding themselves in this unfortunate position, is just make sure you have good medical help.
That's excellent advice. Yeah, I agree totally. And so finally, do you have any marathons, half marathons planned, or and what's your next love gonna be?
That's actually a great question. So
Which one?
I have one semester left in my MBA. So
good luck.
decided. Thank you. I've decided not to run any races in 2019, but I will be running the Scotiabank Marathon in 2020.
The full marathon or the half?
No, I think probably just the half.
Okay. And what's your next what's your next love for bread gonna be?
That's a really good question. We're actually just about to go on vacation for a week, so I'm probably not going to bake any bread this week.
Yeah, but where
I think I'll just we're going to PI. So I know there will be lots of good bread out there to pair with the seafood.
Yes. Nice. All right.
All right, Nick.
Thank you so much for talking to me and doing this podcast.
Nick. Okay, take care.
Thanks. Thank you to Shannon, and thank you all for listening. Please follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Concussion Talk. You can find Concussion Talk Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play Music. As always, music at the beginning of this podcast is by Ben Sound. www.bensound.com.